I usually start off just talking for a short while, just to get the ball rolling, and then it's up to anyone to ask whatever questions they want. I thought this time I'd talk about pramāda, but before I actually come to the topic of pramāda, I'll just say something, a little bit about the actual practice of self-investigation, Atma-vichara. Bhagavan didn't give any explicit instructions when it should be practiced or anything, but generally it's very clearly implied throughout his writings, but it's not something, it's not just something to be done for 10 or 20 minutes meditation morning and evening or anything like that. Ideally we should try to be self-attentive as much as possible throughout the day. Even in the midst of our other activities, we should try to maintain a current of attentive self-awareness. We're always self-aware, but most of the time we're neglecting to attend to self-awareness. We're so interested in the things outside, our thoughts, objects of the world, all the things that seem to us to be real in this dream of ours. We direct all our attention to these things that are anya. Anya means they're other than ourselves. So we don't, we don't direct our attention towards ourselves. So we are turning the direction of the mind, basically. A natural direction of the mind is to go outwards. We are trying to turn it back within. We can do it even in the midst of activities. Some activities obviously require more attention. Oh, no, I'm okay. It just started. I'll be okay. Thank you. It'll probably subside after a while. Some activities require more attention than others, but many the things routine things we do every day actually require very little attention. Most of the time, even in the midst of doing our normal day-to-day activities, we're thinking so many thoughts which are not immediately necessary. Instead of attending to unnecessary thoughts, if we try to attend to our fundamental self-awareness as much as possible, this is basically what we should be trying to do. However, it is useful because we can't go very deep into being self-attentive while we're engaged in other activities. It's useful to have some time when we sit or lie down or whatever we think is, whatever is comfortable for us, and try to be more keenly and steadily self-attentive. That is also beneficial. If we have time that we set aside for trying to go a bit deeper within, that will help us during other times to maintain that steady current of self-attentiveness. And maintaining this current of self-attentiveness will make it easier for us to go deeper within. But whether we are doing it in the midst of other activities or when we're just concentrating on this, there are two obstacles. Two immediate obstacles, immediately obvious obstacles. One is we intend to attend to ourselves. Very quickly we forget what we are intending to do and we begin to think of other things. And that's why Bhagavan said, whenever a thought arises, we should investigate to whom. That is, we should be constantly turning our attention back. It's not necessary to ask the question, but we should be constantly remembering ourselves. We are aware of things because I am. If I wasn't here, I couldn't be aware of all these things. So all this whole cinema show of experience of our life is taking place because I am, because I'm aware of it. So what is this I? We're constantly turning our attention back towards ourselves. So getting distracted by thoughts, and thoughts, according to Bhagavan, includes everything. All what we take to be physical phenomena, we experience them within our mind. In a dream, we seem to experience a physical world. When we wake up, we recognize it's all was our own thoughts, our own mental projection. So also Bhagavan says this whole waking state is just another dream. It's all a mental projection. So everything, all the phenomena we experience are mental phenomena, which is what Bhagavan calls thoughts. So whenever we're aware of anything other than ourselves, that is a thought. So thoughts are one problem. The other problem is, well, thoughts are not a problem in themselves. Being attracted to attend to thoughts is the problem. And thereby getting distracted from attending to ourselves. That is one thing. The other thing is, particularly when we sit to do this, we can, if we try to keep our mind very steady, we can easily slip into sleep. So these are the two immediately obvious obstacles. But actually these two obstacles are caused by the same thing, which is what is called pramāda. Pramāda literally means negligence, inattentiveness, carelessness. In this context, it means self-negligence, neglecting to be self-attentive. So the opposite of pramāda is self-attentiveness. Another term for pramāda is ātma-vichāra. Ātma-vichāra means non-vichara, not attending to ourselves. Pramāda is, so long as we are keenly and steadily attending to ourselves, so long as we're very vigilant in our self-attentiveness, we won't be distracted by thoughts, we won't fall asleep. But as soon as we succumb to a little bit of pramāda, a little bit of negligence in our self-attentiveness, thoughts pop up, or we doze off to sleep, one or the other. So sleep and thoughts actually are not really the problem. The real problem is pramāda. We do need to sleep for a certain number of hours every day, that's not a problem. But during the waking and dream state, as much as possible, we should be trying to attend to ourselves. That is, we should be trying to avoid succumbing to pramāda, to self-negligence. This pramāda is the very root of all our problems. In the Mahabharata, there's a text called Sanut-sujatayam, and a very famous portion of this, Sanut-sujata says, pramāda is mrityu, pramāda is death. And sada pramāda, that means perpetual non-pramāda, is immortality. So when he says it's death because we are dying to our own true nature. We are forgetting what we really are, mistaking ourselves to be this ego. The very nature of the ego is pramāda. Pramāda and the ego actually are one and the same thing. There's no pramāda for our real self. Our real self is always clearly aware of itself as it is. It's immutable, unchanging, ever constantly self-aware and aware of nothing but itself. But we rise as if we are this ego, become aware of other things. All this happens because of pramāda. But pramāda, we shouldn't think the pramāda is for our real self. The pramāda is for our ego. The ego rises out of pramāda, it is pramāda. So the only way to overcome this ego is to be vigilantly self-attentive. The more we closely watch this ego, the ego, Bhagavan says, it's a formless phantom. It doesn't actually exist. It seems to exist so long as we're aware of anything else. That's why Bhagavan says, urupatri undam, urupatri nikkum. That means grasping form it rises, grasping form it stands. Urupatri undu meka ongum. Grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes. That's the nature of the ego. So to overcome this, we have to vigilantly watch it. The more we watch it, when we are attending to ourselves, we're letting go of other things. By letting go of other things, our ego subsides. That's why Bhagavan says in the same verse, Tedinal autum pidicum, which literally means, if sought, it takes flight. That means if we attend to this ego, it subsides and disappears. This self-attentiveness is such a simple thing, but such a powerful thing. This self-attentiveness, if we apply it properly, it will dissolve this ego, and since this ego is the sole basis for the appearance of all this world, Bhagavan sometimes said, this is the atom bomb that will destroy the whole world. So pramāda is self-negligence, self-inattentiveness. The opposite is self-attentiveness. That is what Sujata called sada apramāda. That means perpetual non-negligence. That is perpetual self-attentiveness. That is what we are trying to achieve. And Bhagavan says in one sentence in Nanya, Nirantara Swarupa Smaranai Kai Pat, I can't remember the exact words in Tamil. If one clings firmly to perpetual Swarupa Smarana, that means self-remembrance. That's the same as self-attentiveness, it's just another term for self-attentiveness. That alone is sufficient. In fact, he said, if one clings to perpetual self-remembrance until one attains oneself, that alone is sufficient. So that's all Bhagavan has asked us to do. Bhagavan's teachings are so simple. Some people like me go on yapping about them and writing about them endlessly, but it all comes down to this. It's so simple. Instead of attending to other things, attend to ourselves. That's all there is to it. But because our mind is going out, we have to be constantly reminding ourselves. So all my talking and writing, it's all only to remind myself to do what I should be doing, but I'm not doing, or not doing enough. So, if anyone likes to ask any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to mention, someone asked Ramana about, it's in talks, and he said, Wagner, he said, well, I did, because Ramana said, all the world's in you, and he said, well, let's take Wagner, for example. I mean, he said, I didn't create that. He said, no, Wagner, this isn't exactly, he says, no, Wagner is it's in your awareness, it's your thought.
Yes.
Now the reason I get into this is because, I mean, I know the reasoning, but the reason I feel separate from everything is I have for the world to be in me, which it most likely is, but you need the conviction.
Yes.
I think the deep conviction would stop this, you wouldn't have to practice.
Yes.
It would stop this. But let's take today, I mean, let's take, you've been to an IMAX film, haven't you? You've got the goggles. Look at the sound alone is so creative.
Yes.
Let's go through it clearly. So the sound, the picture, the images from second to second, the language even, there could be a foreign language with translation. Now, let's assume nothing outside this exists because there's no evidential evidence. In that moment, that is all me, or I, or the real I.
Yes.
The real I is creating a scene, according to Ramana. You would say, well, that's all your thought.
Yeah.
That whole scene, which is mind-blowing. It's easy to believe that it's taken thousands of years to create that.
Yes.
How is that my thought?
Do you believe your dream is your thought?
Yes.
Yes.
It really is.
It all just appears before us.
Yes.
And when we are dreaming, one thing you said, which is not actually quite correct, you said our real self is creating all this. Our real self doesn't create anything. It doesn't do anything. Its nature is just to be. It is just pure self-awareness. It doesn't do anything. When we are dreaming, we experience ourselves as a person in the dream. That person we experience, because we experience ourselves as a person in a dream, if something happens, if, say, we're being chased by a monster, we have to run away from it. Though that monster is our own mental creation, because we have not only created the monster, we've also created a person whom we take to be ourselves. Because we are experiencing ourselves to be a person in that dream, we are no longer in control of what we're projecting. Who has projected the dream? It is someone who is sleeping. That sleeping person projects a dream in which he sees himself as another person. So our real self never sleeps. So our real self never dreams. That's why ultimately when people ask about how it all happened, how the ego arose in the first place, there's only one answer to that. It may seem that Bhagavan's evading. That's one question Bhagavan never has told us how this ego arose. He said it arises by grasping form, but it must arise in order to grasp form. So it's not really a complete explanation. The answer Bhagavan gave when people asked, how did this ego arise? He said, first see whether it's arisen. Look within, see whether it's arisen. If it's really arisen, then you come back and ask me the question. If you can find it and bring the culprit to me.
Yeah, it's back to the mind. Yes. So when I say the IMAX silly mind blowing, you'll say, well, who's asking? The one that's in awe of it is a phantom, an illusion trying to work out an illusion.
The one who is in awe of it is himself part of the dream in which the IMAX is there. So it's all a dream. But if we go back, that's why Bhagavan said we have to go back the way we came. We have to, this I has risen from something, from ourself, obviously. Bhagavan used to say this, it's like a dog following the scent of its human companion. Its human friend may be far away, but there's a scent which the dog can smell, which has originated from that human friend. So the dog follows that scent, and unfailingly, so long as it doesn't let go of the scent while following it, it will unfailingly lead back to its source, who is its friend. In the same way, if we keenly watch this ego, this I that has risen and is experiencing all this, the I who feels I am this person, I am this body, I am Michael, I am whoever, if we keenly watch, what is this I? Watch it very keenly, it will subside back into its source. That's like the dog following the scent of its human friend. It will unfailingly lead us back to the source from which it came. That's what Bhagavan meant when he said, go back the way you came.
I'll tell you what I prefer, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I'll give you an example in a cinema.
Yeah.
Now, I can see the most terrible horror on that screen.
Yes.
And I can see sadness, every emotion, but I never lose the knowledge I'm safely on the seat. I'm not really in that.
Yes,
so
but
I don't need to keep reminding myself I'm on a seat, I'm on a seat.
Yes.
You don't need to. It's just a fact. You're on the seat.
Yes.
So you're safely.
But why?
And that's conviction. With victory.
No, but why watching a film has an impact on us? If we were really thinking, oh, it's just a picture on a screen, it wouldn't have any impact in us. We identify ourselves with the story that's going on there. We may not actually be part of it, but as if we are part of it. So we get carried away by, we weep when sad things happen, we get a shock when...
deep conviction that I'm on my seat, I'm not really in it.
Yes.
Deep conviction, you don't even think about it, it stops you getting into abject terror.
This is the problem with any analogy, is analogous only in certain respects.
Yes.
It's a very useful analogy Bhagavan gave us of the cinema projection, but we can't apply it too far. Consider in a dream. In a dream, we are actually dreaming we are part of the cinema show that's going on. Now we are dreaming this is a cinema show, we are part of this cinema show.
Yes. So
Yeah,
accept the character who thinks this is real.
Yeah, but why Bhagavan told us that this is all a mental projection is not to prompt us to puzzle about how can this all be. Of course, we have to reflect and convince ourselves, but I mean, we can't know for certain that this is a dream or not. But there's no way we can know that this is not a dream. So we have no grounds for believing this is not a dream. So when when such is the case, we shouldn't be overly concerned about what is happening. In a dream, if we see suffering, if we see a huge refugee crisis in a dream, if we see millions of animals being slaughtered every day in a dream, what's the way to solve all these problems? We can set up charities to try and help the refugees. We can lobby the government. We can set up another charity to try to put an end to animal suffering and slaughter and all these things. We can do all these things. But this is only solving the problem to a minute extent. Because we know the nature of the world, one problem gets solved, another problem crops up in its place. So in a dream we can do all these things, but sooner or later we're going to wake up. When we wake up, the whole problem is solved. If we had tried to wake up from the start, rather than engage in so many activities, I'm not saying that we should be indifferent to all the suffering we see in the world. If we've got a compassionate heart, we can't help but be moved when we see suffering. Whether human suffering or non-human suffering. Suffering is suffering.
But if it is all a dream, we have 100% conviction it's all a dream, that should all admit. I mean, that's the fact. It's really happening.
Does anyone here have 100% conviction this is a dream? We all have 100% conviction this is real.
I can only speak for me, and the reasoning is flawless. Okay, so nothing outside this could possibly exist unless I think about it. I'm there again to create. That's flawless logic.
But if a tiger has escaped from London Zoo and walks in this door now, we're very convinced we're this body and we're going to run away from it.
Even though the logic is full, 100% perfect.
Yeah.
You know, there's two elements going on here. There's a surface intellection and there's a deep held, much deeper down.
Yeah.
There's a majority of evidence. Deep down, there's a belief this is real. So however irrational that is, it's like on a plane, for example. I mean, I know the statistics. Turbulence, 3 people have died from turbulence or something since 1980. And it's the safest form of travel, and turbulence is... And yet I still get this terrible anxiety when the thing jumps about. It doesn't matter how much I read, how much I prepare, it still occurs. So it's much greater than me. So what I'm saying is, even with the conviction up here that this is all a dream, deep down it's not really, it's not really hit where it's actually stopping the mind going outwards, chasing things.
We can, at a superficial level of the mind, we can be convinced. By being convinced, what is the use of being convinced this is all a dream when it all seems real? If we want to make use of this conviction, we have to turn our attention within to investigate this ego. That's the whole point of it. Philosophers have been arguing for thousands of years whether this world exists independent of the mind or whether it's all in the mind. There's no end to these arguments. We can go on arguing. But Bhagavan has told us this to wean our mind away from its fascination with the world. That is our aim, not to think about whether is it a dream or is it not a dream, is it a mental projection or does it really exist there. Inwardly we can think over these things to strengthen our conviction, but we have no grounds for believing this is anything but a dream.
But it's not just for the sake of philosophy. The reason I do it is very clear. It takes away misery. So for example, you know, I love animals. Humans. If I see an animal hurt, it hurts me. But let's think about it. I'm immediately putting a doer. I'm putting a separate entity in that cat. That I see hurt. Now that when I see him hurt, it hurts me. That's all my projection, my idea that I imagine a cat that's being hurt, a little vulnerable creature that's being hurt. Right? This causes pain. Now it's all my imagination that's doing it. If I know that's a dream, then that's an image. There's no separate entity in the cat like I think there is in me. There's no longer any suffering. I see the cat. Not that I might try and help. But so it is very important for me to, it's very important, the conviction. It's fundamentally the conviction that this is just a dream, because the day-to-day suffering diminishes. If someone abuses me, I don't think what a sod, because when I'm saying what a sod, I'm assuming there's a separate entity in there, as I think there's one of me.
I agree with you. By having this conviction, we're slowly weaning our mind away from this world. But the fact is, supposing that we are suffering, we are very concerned to alleviate our own suffering. But actually, the we who is suffering, the person who is suffering, Michael is suffering, this Michael is as much a mental projection as all the other people that Michael is seeing. So Michael is in no way any more important than any of the other people. Because I take Michael to be I, Michael's suffering is particularly important to me. I am moved when I see other people suffering, but my concern for other people's suffering is less great than my concern for my own suffering. Because when I say my own, I take Michael to be I. So I take Michael's suffering to be my own suffering. So long as our mind is going outwards, we should be compassionate. We should, if we see suffering, we should try to alleviate it. If we see a bird that's been caught in a chimney, we try to get it out of the chimney so it can fly out the window. Whatever it is. That is right and proper, so long as our mind is going outwards. Otherwise, if we say it's only a mental projection, we only care about our own suffering, that is strengthening the ego. So by having that compassion for the suffering of others, that is, to that extent, we are weakening the ego. We are not concerned only with the person I seem to be, we're concerned with all the people. People means human people and non-human people. So that's necessary. But all this is on the surface. It's not a deep solution. The deep solution is the permanent solution is to wake up. And the only way to wake up is to see who is sleeping. Who is the one who is experiencing all this? If we turn our attention back to this ego, because the ego seems to exist only when it's attending to other things, when we try to attend to this ego alone, it subsides and dissolves back into its source. This is the only way. This is the purpose of all that Bhagavan taught us, is only to encourage us in so many ways and to prompt us to investigate ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. So there was some other, yes?
You mentioned two obstacles to
yes.
turning inwards. One about the mind drifting to activities.
Yes.
And the other about getting people to sleep.
Yes. Activity and inactivity, both are problems.
There are two questions. How did you personally get rid of this? Or have you ever got rid of this thing?
If I had got rid of it, I wouldn't be here. If any of us had got rid of it, we wouldn't be dreaming this dream. Okay. So we're all in the same boat. But I said activity and inactivity, both are problems. But there are two types of inactivity. There's the inactivity of sleep, where the mind is completely submerged. In sleep there's no mind, no ego. So it's a state of perfect stillness. But it's a temporary state because the ego hasn't been destroyed. In order to destroy the ego, simply not being aware of other things, simply not engaging in activity is not sufficient. Because if we prevent the ego from acting, it falls asleep or falls into nirvikalpa samadhi or whatever we want to call it. It's all manolaya. If we allow it to act, it gets into thought, activity, all this world. So we have to balance between the two. I think this is why in the Upanishads it is said this is they call it the razor's edge. We've got to be balanced between, midway between activity and the inactivity of sleep. But in order to be balanced in that, we have to be self-attentive. Why our ego is not destroyed when we fall asleep? Because we don't fall asleep due to being self-attentive. We fall asleep because of tiredness. In order to destroy the mind, we cannot destroy the mind in sleep, because the mind doesn't exist in sleep. The mind must be existing. So the mind, the ego, must attend to itself in waking and dream. While it is, once it has risen, it must turn its attention back to itself, and it must, with clear, attentive self-awareness, it must subside back into its source. When it does so, it'll be destroyed forever. If we look at the sun with our eyes open, our eyes will be blinded. If we look at the sun with our eyes closed, we won't be blinded. Sleep is like looking at the sun with our eyes closed. Not that there's anyone actually in sleep whose eyes are closed. What exists in sleep is only the pure self-awareness that we actually are. But we're talking from the perspective of our ego in waking state. We can say, as an analogy, our ego has closed its eyes in sleep. So it's not, though the self-awareness alone exists there, it's not seeing it. Because it's not there to see it.
You were talking there as if the ego, somehow it disappears and then suddenly it reconstitutes itself on waking up.
How does it do so?
Pardon?
How does it do so?
Yes.
Good question. That's what we've got to try to find out. But Bhagavan says, rather than trying to find out how does it do so, try to see whether it has done so.
Yeah, so you're suggesting, or Bhagavan is suggesting there, that somehow it doesn't do so. Somehow it doesn't exist, actually.
Yes.
In fact, some people have said that the ego doesn't exist.
Well, that's what Bhagavan said. But he can, though in his experience there is no ego, no world, nothing, if he talks to us, if he had taught us just a jata, which is that there's no ego, no world, nothing. In fact, there's no teaching, no guru, no disciple, there's nothing to say, there's just silence. If he had, that wouldn't be much use to us, because we're not able to understand that silence. We're not able to, if we are told nothing exists, what's the use of that? It all seems to exist. So, Bhagavan conceded that the ego seems to exist. Though in his view there is no ego, he conceded that from our point of view there is an ego. There seems to be an ego, because there seems to be a world. So he said, all this appears because you rise as this ego. Investigate the ego will disappear, all this will disappear, because the ego doesn't actually exist. The ego seems to exist because of pramāda, because we of our self-negligence, are not attending to ourselves keenly, steadily and vigilantly. All this seems to exist.
But it doesn't actually exist.
It doesn't actually exist, but there's no use in you and I sitting here saying it doesn't exist. It bloody well seems to exist. So we can't, Bhagavan's teachings are very useful to direct us to turn within. That's the whole purpose of them. It's not just for discussion. I mean, we do discuss now among ourselves, and even when we're not among our friends, we will be discussing within our own mind what Bhagavan has taught us. But the whole point of all this discussion is only to encourage us to turn within, to be self-attentive. Otherwise we just like philosophers in universities. We can go on spouting all these things endlessly, but it doesn't solve any problems. Our problem can be solved only by applying what Bhagavan has taught us in practice, which is by being self-attentive.
So eventually, let's say we do that. I mean, I know it's a speculation. We actually, more or less, while we're awake, we manage to be self-attentive for hours on end.
Yes.
So is that what the meaning of the price of eternal happiness is? Perpetual vigilance?
Yes, yeah, exactly, that's it. Exactly. That is sada pramāda, perpetual vigilance, perpetual self-vigilance, self-attentiveness. That is the price we have to pay. So long as until the ego is dissolved completely, we have to continue doing this as a practice. Once the ego is dissolved, then we'll find that perpetual vigilance is our very nature.
But you say you're doing it again. You said that when the ego is eventually dissolved, but it never was in the first place.
It does. Yes, that is true, but it seems to exist. So when we talk, there's a term, manonasa, destruction of the mind.
Yeah.
That, the implication of destruction of the mind, if the mind actually exists, we've got to destroy it. But language has its limitations. We have to use language to convey something. Because the mind now seems to exist, the realization that there is no mind is called destruction of the mind. If it's dim light and we see something lying on the ground and we take it to be a snake, how to kill that snake? We can take a snake and beat it and beat it and beat it. We're not going to kill it. The only way to kill it is to look at it very carefully and say, oh, it was only a rope. When we see it's only a rope, the snake is disappeared, it's dead. No longer there to trouble us. No change has actually taken place. When we experience ourselves as we really are, it won't be, Bhagavan has said it's like waking up from a dream. But even that is, from the perspective of a dreamer, it is said like that. From the perspective of one who is woken, the one who is woken up, it is always awake. That is, we ourselves are always awake. So when our ego is dissolved, it's not that we newly know ourselves. Atma-vichara is not a new knowledge to be attained. Atma-vichara is here and now. Atma-vichara simply means self-awareness. We are always self-aware, so there's no one here is not an Atma-vichara. But on top of our Atma-vichara, we've superimposed awareness of other things. So if we simply remove the, Bhagavan used to say, there's nothing to be realized. But what is real is always real. And so there's no need to realize it. The problem is we have realized the unreal. Now we have to unrealize the unreal, and that is what people call self-realization.
And that is the unrealization.
So there's nothing, Atma-vichara is not a new thing to be attained. From the perspective of the ego, it's a matter of losing everything. When everything is lost, what actually exists alone remains. When the snake disappears, what remains is the rope, which was always there. That's why Bhagavan says, Nitya Muktan. It's eternally free, eternally liberated.
Does it help us to have that knowledge that we are already liberated?
It does help us, because if it was something to be attained in future, whatever is newly attained can be lost. Only what is eternal, it wouldn't be worth seeking if it wasn't eternal. And we say it because of, again, we are talking in language, and language is by nature dualistic. But it is not it is I. We already know we are. But on top of this knowledge I am, we have superimposed other things. I am this body. Remove the I am the body, what remains is the basic I am. Remove awareness of other things, what remains is self-awareness. But how awareness of other things arises? To the pure self-awareness, there is never awareness of anything else. It's to this mixed self-awareness called ego, where all these awareness of other things arises. So we've got to cut that root, the ego. Simply giving up being aware of other things is falling asleep. Again, this ego subsides, again it pops up. So we've got to cut it, it is the root, we've got to cut that root. We can do that only by, in this waking or dream state, the self-awareness that we really are, the self-awareness that we experience in sleep, the pure self-awareness, we have to experience it here and now. If the ego, for a moment, experiences that pure self-awareness, it is no longer ego, it's finished. That is manonasa. Yes?
So I have two questions. One is, how do you make yourself self-aware all the time?
You don't need to make yourself self-aware, because you're already self-aware. If you could make yourself not self-aware, that would be a great achievement. Even Bhagavan cannot make himself not self-aware, because self-awareness is our very nature. We're self-aware in waking, we're self-aware in dream, we're self-aware in sleep. Self-awareness is the basic awareness. It's not, even the term self-awareness, again, language has its limitation, because what is self-awareness? It's awareness of oneself. But it's not actually awareness of oneself. I mean, oneself is not an object. Now I'm aware of this chair. This chair is an object. This is what is called transitive awareness. It's awareness of something. But self-awareness is not transitive awareness, it's intransitive awareness. It's just awareness. But the nature of awareness, when we're aware but we are aware. So being aware entails being aware of oneself who is aware. So self-awareness is the basic form of awareness, which is always there. On this basic awareness, which is just pure intransitive awareness, transitive awareness arises. There's a word Bhagavan often used in Tamil, which is suttarivu. Suttarivu literally means showing awareness or pointing awareness. That is transitive awareness, awareness of other things. That is the problem. So in order to dissolve the ego, whose nature is to be aware of other things, we have to train the ego to try to be aware of itself alone. When the ego can eventually manage to be aware of itself alone for a second, that's finished. It can't survive. Just like we can't look at the sun and never see anything again. If ego once sees what it really is, it's dissolved, it's finished. And it never actually existed.
Yes, well, of course, in the dream, none of this, if I go to sleep and have a dream in that state, all of this never existed.
Exactly.
I have no memory of any of it.
Well, you do have memory of it, but you think that you're still in this state.
Well, what I'm saying is when I'm dreaming at night, all of this whole sequential story has vanished, and all the misery and everything else has absolutely vanished. So I'm in another, like you said, I'm in another state with another load of memory, but this has vanished, and even the seeking and everything else has vanished. And so yes, I mean it's flawless logic. Flawless logic. It just doesn't. In my experience, it doesn't really work. It doesn't. In the deep sense, there's still something deep there. It's constantly seeking and yearning, which is why this thing's raised. I actually think this thing is looking for something. It's looking for, in this waking state, which is fictitious. It's not there part of the time. It vanishes. I know. I mean, but it's looking for something, and until it finds it, it's gonna just project on anything it can get its hands to get its juice.
Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, dissatisfaction is proof that we are Brahman.
Yes.
Because we cannot be satisfied. If we have all the wealth in the world, all the power, whatever, if all our desires are fulfilled, we will still have more desires. We will never be satisfied. Because we can't be satisfied with anything less than that absolute fullness of pure self-awareness, which is Brahman.
Yes.
So our dissatisfaction is the proof that we are Brahman, but now we seem to be separated from that. When we experience ourselves as we really are, then alone will we actually be satisfied.
And I'll tell you what, I'm happy if you can find an antidepressant that works or anything that works. It just, they're clearly looking for, I want to be happy.
Yeah.
I can't, at the moment I felt
Yes.
miserably, I admit it.
Yeah.
I felt miserable.
But you take your antidepressant, you feel a little better, you feel a little relieved for a while, and then again it all comes back again. So nothing works. We've tried so many things.
This moment,
We've-
nothing works.
Yeah. So there's only one thing that will work, and that is to be aware of ourselves as we actually are. Because we are the fullness. We are what we are seeking.
Can you describe how self-awareness or Brahman feels like?
Sorry?
Can you describe how self-awareness
Yes.
or Brahman feels like? Does it have any attributes? Does it?
How do you feel like? Sorry, may I know your name?
Nitin.
Hmm?
Nitin.
Nidhi. Nityan. Yeah, okay, Nitin. Okay, if you remove Nitin, remove the body, the mind, the thoughts, all the things that make up Nitin, what is the base on which all these things appear? That basic self-awareness is, what do we experience in sleep? We don't experience anything except self-awareness. That is Brahman.
So that self-awareness doesn't feel like anything really.
Who says that? It is Nitin who said that now. But Nitin wasn't there in sleep, so Nitin has no memory of what. All Nitin knows is I slept. But what actually, that pure self-awareness, because we don't experience we do experience pure self-awareness now, but with all these adjuncts superimposed on it. So we're not experiencing self-awareness in its pure condition as we experience it in sleep. Because we don't experience it now in the waking state, we can't recognize what we had experienced in sleep, because we don't recognize it now. So what we need to do is to recognize that now itself by withdrawing our attention from all other things and trying to be attentively. We are always self-aware, but we are usually negligently self-aware because we're more interested in attending to other things. We have to focus all our attention just on that self-awareness.
So
It cannot be put in words. You asked me to describe it. Even Bhagavan cannot describe it. No sage can describe it. Okay, there are words like Satchidananda and such things. Akhanda, Purna, all these terms are used for it. But these are not actually, the words cannot convey what it is. Because until we experience it ourselves, we are experiencing it now, but in order to experience it as it is, we have to remove all the adjuncts, all that is superimposed upon it.
including, I guess, awareness and who am I?
What do you mean by awareness? Awareness of what? If you mean awareness of other things, that has to be removed.
No, including the concept of awareness.
The concept of awareness, all concepts, yes. Who is aware of the concept of awareness?
So can we say that it's the basic form of life?
Yes, the base is, self-awareness is the base of everything.
That is
Yeah, that is prajnanam Brahman. That prajnana is that self-awareness, that fundamental awareness. That is Brahman. But to experience it as it is, we have to remove all the superimpositions.
An experience can never be explained.
Yes.
Like a sweetness.
Yes.
Sweetness has to be experienced.
Exactly. Yeah.
Explained.
Yes. Yeah.
So what happens when a person dies? So it's just a form of that self-awareness being is gone out of the world, or does it still exist even after the death?
What happens when a dream comes to an end? Either you fall asleep or you project another dream.
Sometimes we project another dream as well.
Yes. So the same, death is just the ending of one dream. After all, death is for whom? It's for the body. But the mind doesn't die, does it? When we wake up from a dream, that dream body is dead, for all intents and purposes. But we continue. What we need is not death of the body, but death of the mind.
It is the ego that has to kill the ego. Is that right?
Yes, but how does it kill? As I said, you can't kill the snake by the illusory snake by beating it. You have to see what it is. The ego kills itself by seeing itself.
It's a bit of a tall order asking the ego to kill the ego. Or conjecture.
Okay, then you need not bother to kill the ego. Just see the ego. If you can see it, then we can talk about whether we need to kill it or not. Have you ever seen the ego?
Sure.
It seems to exist so long as we are attending to other things. But if we turn to look at it, what is it? It's a formless phantom. Supposing we're walking through a forest at night. There's a little bit of moonlight coming through the trees. We see what look like ghosts here and there and everywhere. But if we look at any of these seeming ghosts, we don't actually see it because there aren't any ghosts. The ego is like that. That's why Bhagavan calls it Uruvachapeya Hande, the formless phantom ego. It's just a ghost. It seems to exist when we don't look at it. When we look at it, it's nowhere to be seen. That is what is called killing the ego, but it's not really killing it because it's not alive in the first place. It doesn't exist in the first place.
It's just, I find it difficult to get my head around what is doing the asking, what is doing the question.
What is doing everything is the ego. The ego now seems to exist because it's doing all these things. Instead of attending to all these doings, if it attends to its own being, it will disappear.
I just wanted to ask about the difference between self-inquiry and mindfulness.
Mindfulness means simply attentiveness. Attentive to what? Self-inquiry, self-investigation, whatever we call it, is self-mindfulness, being mindful of oneself alone.
Nothing else.
Nothing else. Just being mindful of the fundamental self-awareness. What is often called mindfulness, the Buddhist practice of vipassana, is that you're being mindful of body and what you're doing, all these things. These are all anya, all things other than ourselves.
But it does diminish the ego.
What?
It does kind of diminish the ego in a way.
It may to a certain extent, but it can't completely diminish the ego because who is mindful? It is the ego that is being mindful. And the ego rises by being mindful of things other than itself. We don't want to be mindful, we want to be mindless. We can be mindless by being mindful of ourself alone. Being mindful of the self-awareness, nothing else.
But is it not true that being mindfulness is actually being on the razor's edge? Because if you become mindless, it takes you to inactivity.
Sorry, I didn't follow that.
If you're mindful,
Yes.
is it not like being on the razor's edge? Because you're mindful of activity but not participating in it. But if you become mindless, do you go into some sort of an abyss where there's no activity at all?
Well, the abyss in which there's no activity, that is what is called manolaya, when the mind subsides. That's like sleep. But the mindlessness I'm talking about is not the manolaya, but the manonasa. the destruction of the mind. That is what we're seeking. We can achieve that mindlessness, the real, perpetual, eternal mindlessness, which alone is what is real. We can achieve that by being mindful only of ourself, the fundamental self-awareness. If we are mindful of anything else, we are still feeding the ego. We maybe are keeping the ego in check. Instead of allowing the ego to roam around thinking of so many things in the world, thinking how can I acquire more money, how can I achieve this, how can I achieve that, we're just being mindful of a few things. That way we're keeping the ego in check. That's why a lot of spiritual practices do work insofar as they purify the mind. They reduce its attachment to other things. If you train yourself to attend to one thing, suppose you're a Rama Bhakta, you're always doing japa of Rama, Nama, Rama, 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 Rama. Your whole attention is on that. But because your attention is on that Rama Nama, it's not on all the other things. So the attachment for other things gets weakened. And you're quite satisfied just with it, repeating that Rama Nama. So your mind is thereby purified. But Rama is the Nama of whom? Of God. I've got his name, but I'm still not experiencing him. So who is that God? God then appears in the form of Guru and says, you are that. So we then have to turn within. Once our mind has been purified by doing all these other sadhanas, this becomes very easy. But we don't, in order to purify our mind, we don't have to do all these other sadhanas, because the most purifying of all the sadhanas is attending to ourselves. That's why Bhagavan says in Upadesha he describes in verse 3, he says, in the first two verses, he says, karma cannot give liberation. Then in the third verse he says, but nishkarmiya karma, done for the love of God, or offered to God, purifies the mind and shows the way to liberation. It's not itself the way to liberation, but it shows the way to liberation. Then in the subsequent verses he describes what type of nishkarmiya karmas can we do. We can do by body, speech and mind. The nishkarmiya karma by body is puja. That could be doing ritual worship. It could also be doing, helping relieve suffering when we see it, whatever. That's all puja. Japa is repeating the name of God or some mantra or something. That is by speech. And dhyana, meditation, is by mind. Bhagavan says in this order they're progressively more purifying. Because actions done by the body are relatively gross. Speech is more subtle. Mind is more subtle. So the meditation is most purifying of all these actions. But there are two types of meditation. We can either do anya-bhava, meditate on God, or on, if you're doing mindfulness, your body is something other than yourself. So you can either meditate on something other than yourself, or you can do ananya-bhava, that's meditating on yourself alone. That meditation on your ananya-bhava, Bhagavan says, is anatinam uttamam. That is the highest of all. That means, because this is in the context of talking about which actions are most purifying. Actually, attending to anything other than ourselves is an action. Attending to ourselves is not an action. That's why in the next verse he says, Bhava balatina bhavanatita sabbhava tirutale. It's being in that state of being which transcends meditation. As a result of a meditation, that is the self-attentiveness, that is the supreme bhakti. So this self-attentiveness is the most purifying of all the sadhanas we can do. So if we want, we can go a long circuitous way doing all this. We can start off with doing japa, with doing puja for 100 gemmas, and then another 100 gemmas doing japa, another 100 gemmas doing dhyana. We can get there much quicker by meditating on ourselves, by attending to ourselves from the start. It's difficult because we have so many attachments. But if we want to weaken our attachments, the most effective way to do so, because by attending to anything other than ourselves, we are reducing our attachments for other things, increasing our attachment for that one thing. By meditating on Rama Nama, I get great attachment for that Rama Nama. I lose my attachment for other things, I get attachment for Rama Nama. But that attachment is mixed with love. So when Rama appears before me and says, you are that, but Rama you are seeking is within you, turn within and see it, then I have to let go of that Rama Nama and turn within to know myself. Because Rama himself has told me you are that, but he is myself. Because I have so much faith and love in him, I turn within with the conviction, but I is more real than the Rama Nama. The I who is repeating that Rama Nama is more real than the Rama Nama. Even when I'm not repeating Rama Nama, I still am. So with that love to know who Rama really is, the mind turns within and emerges within.
So does it mean that instead of pondering on God, concentrating on yourself, your self-awareness, is that you are attending to God within you?
That is that is really
that you are God.
That is really
essentially.
Yes, God is nothing other than us. Because we've limited ourselves, God is the infinite whole. So nothing can be other than the infinite whole. So we are not other than God. But because we have limited ourselves as a person, God is something vast, we are something tiny, there seems to be that separation. That separation is created by the rising of our ego. But it's not a real separation, it's only a seeming separation. So if we were, rather than thinking of God as something other than ourselves, which is not what he really is, thinking of ourself alone, which is what he really is, that is the supreme. Bhagavan says in one verse, Atma-vichara aktu paramisa bhakti. Because Eason shines as Atman. So by attending to ourselves, that is the supreme love of God, because God is nothing other than oneself. So once someone asked Bhagavan, I think some Christian missionary had said, asked Bhagavan, isn't it blasphemy to say I'm God? Bhagavan said, isn't it blasphemy to say I'm separate from God? To say anything other than God exists is blasphemy. He is the infinite whole. So claiming a separate existence for ourselves, that is blasphemy.
And there's a difference between no mind and deranged mind.
Yes.
A deranged mind is not useful.
No.
But for someone with no mind in achieve a lot.
Yes.
Like for example, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa,
yes.
Nelson Mandela. These are all people who have gone beyond mind. So what they achieve is...
Well, we don't know who has gone beyond mind or not. They may not have gone beyond mind. They did good things in the world, that is certain. But, I mean, they sacrificed themselves for some higher good. But the mind itself is deranged. Because what the mind really is nothing but Brahman. When the mind turns within, it shines as Brahman. When it turns outwards, it shines as a small finite entity, separate from everything else. This is derangement. So the mind is born in derangement. So show me a mind that is not deranged.
We're talking about the ego, how to solve the ego.
Yes.
Isn't the ego a bundle of all our possessions and all our ownership of everything around, of emotions and all that?
The ego...
And is the fear of, this fear of losing them causes more strengthening the ego. And if you observe that this is not mine, this emotion is not mine, this object is not mine, I'm not afraid of losing them, are you going to keep away from all these things and then slowly turn your mind inward for self-attention?
Well, firstly, the ego is not a bundle of anything. The ego is the possessor of the bundle. All things, the ego is one. It's not many things. There's one ego. That one ego rises and says, all this is mine. This is my body. This is my mind. This is my name, my wealth, my this, that, my country, my religion, whatever. That is the one who claims all these things as mine, that is the ego. As you say, the ego is attached to all these things, so it's afraid to lose them, so it clings to them more firmly. The more it clings to other things, the stronger it becomes. But in order to dissolve this ego, we have to look at it itself. So long as we allow it to cling to anything else, Bhagavan says it comes into existence, urupatri undam, urupatri nikum, urupatri undu mihongam. That is, grasping form, it comes into existence. Grasping form, it stands. Grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes.
Should we not weaken our attachment to external?
Yes, that's precisely.
Which will make us much stronger to inwardly.
But how to weaken our attachment to external things? What is not external? Everything is external to us. Even our thoughts, people think if you're thinking your thoughts, you're turned inwards. No, the thoughts are external. They're things that we projected outwards. So who is the one who has projected all these things? Who is aware of all these things? That is the ego. So we have to let go of everything else and hold on to this ego. Catch hold of it. Try to catch it, it disappears. Problem solved.
I agree. Here, what happens, compare planet Earth with Jupiter or Mars, right? Only in planet Earth, because many millions of years, human beings have built a house, built all the equipments, built air conditioning, built money, stock exchange and possessions, everything. But these are all creation of the human mind over generation by generation, and they are again, creation of thought. They are all bundle of thoughts created into something.
In a dream, you may say, all this big beautiful city, London, has been created over thousands of years, all these buildings have come. When you wake up, do you still think that it all happened over generation after generation? No. It started as soon as you started dreaming, it appeared as soon as you started dreaming, it disappeared when you stopped dreaming. This is exactly the same. Where is Jupiter? Where is anything? Where is the Big Bang that began so many billions of years ago? The Big Bang comes into existence when we read about it in our school textbooks. It's an idea. The whole thing is all ideas.
Because in those planets you don't have anything to possess, nothing is there. But
where do those planets exist? They exist only as thoughts in your own mind.
Does it mean that leaving our ego or catching hold of the ego, meaning that do we need to leave everything in life? Means naturally catching ourselves from all of that and attaining that the final step of catching the ego. Is that a process or a journey?
In verse 26 of Ulunaptu, Bhagavan says, Ahande undain anetmu undaham. If the ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. Ahande indru anatam. If the ego does not exist, nothing exists. Ahande yavamam. The ego is everything. Therefore, he said, Adalal yadu idu endranadale overall yavum and all. Therefore, investigating what it is giving up everything. So this Atma-vichara is the supreme renunciation. It entails giving up everything. Because when we investigate this ego disappears, everything disappears. It's not necessary until we are able to investigate this ego so keenly that it disappears. It's not necessary to renounce our job, to renounce our family, or to go and live in a cave in the Himalayas. The cave is still a part of our projection. The Himalayas are still a part of our projection. This is not the point. The real renunciation is not external renunciation. Renouncing this ego. And we can renounce the ego only by vigilantly attending to it. It comes into existence by grasping other things. It disappears by attending to itself. So by attending to this ego, we are renouncing everything. Otherwise, and Bhagavan used to say, what's the use of taking sannyasa and then feel, I belong to the highest ashrama. I am superior to all these householders. Bhagavan said, the householder who doesn't think I am a householder is a better sannyasi than the sannyasi who thinks I'm a sannyasi. The real sannyasi is only the jnani. Yeah, okay.
I think you're ready to ask a question.
Could you please talk more about the practice of being self-attentive? Because in general we are used to paying attention to external objects using our five senses, but when you say turn within and pay attention to as we really are, I can't seem to do that because of course there's no objective reference point or
okay. Do you agree that you can attend to anything you're aware of?
Right.
Everything other than ourselves is an object. We are used to attending to these objects, whether material objects of the world or mental objects, the thoughts in our mind. Actually, according to Bhagavan, they're all mental objects, they're all mental phenomena. But they're all objects, they're all things other than I. But though we are aware of all these things, what is the fundamental thing we're aware of? We're aware of ourself. We're aware of I. We cannot be aware of anything else without being aware of ourselves. So, since we are aware of ourselves, just like we can attend to objects, we can attend to our own our own self-awareness. But whereas objects, they're objects that we attend to. It's like we are not, if you're on a screen, we watch so many pictures. But instead of, the pictures are all objects. But the background of all those objects, the background on which they appear, is the screen. The self-awareness that we really are is that screen. It's the background on which all awareness of all other things appears. So we, instead of attending to the pictures, we're attending to the screen itself. That fundamental self-awareness, but when we talk of screen, we're talking again about something outside. So analogies are always imperfect. So what I'm saying is that whatever else we are aware of, that self-awareness is there. So we are always self-aware, but most of the time we are negligently self-aware. We don't attend to our self-awareness because there's so many things, interesting things, other things to attend to. Because we find all these things interesting, we attend to these things and we neglect to attend to ourselves, this fundamental self-awareness. We are not an object. So it's attending to an object. Supposing I meditate on this chair. This is a crude object. It's stula. This self-awareness is sukshma. It's the most subtle of all things. But it's still something we are very clearly aware of. Do you have any doubt that you exist? No, we all know we exist. We cannot be aware of anything else without being aware of ourselves. So instead of just being negligently self-aware as we usually are, we want to be attentively self-aware or self-attentive. It's not attending to an object, but it's attending to that which is aware of all objects.
Right, but I don't know what it looks like, feels like.
You do know. How can you say? You say, I don't know. I don't know what I look like. How can I not know I?
True, but when I try to do it,
it's not an object because we're not looking for an object. We're looking for the subject. Who is this subject? The one who is aware of all the objects.
So in practice, what should it feel like? Or
You know what self-awareness is?
Yes.
You know, most of the time, though the self-awareness is always there in the background, most of the time you're neglecting that because you're interested in other things. Instead of neglecting that self-awareness, if you just try to be attentively aware of it, we're always aware of it, we need to just add that element of attentiveness. When more we attend to the self-awareness that we actually are, the more our attention is withdrawn from other things. And when we manage to withdraw all our attention from other, we're not trying to withdraw it from other things, we're just turning it back towards ourselves. By turning it back, automatically it's withdrawn from other things. The more we are able to focus our attention on ourselves, but when we use words like this, it sounds like there's an object, but it's because of the limitations of language. We are self-aware. Just try to be attentively self-aware. Words can say no more than that. Words are not adequate instruments. Sometimes when people ask Bhagavan the same question, he said, do you need to be shown the way inside your own house? No one can show you the way inside your own house, because no one else can enter your house. You alone can enter your house. So you've got to find your own way in.
But the thing is, I don't know what it should be like. Or
you don't need to know what it should be like. It's not it, it's you.
It's better
what are you?
It's better not to know, and then you get.
Yeah. If you're exactly. If you're anticipating something, it's not anything you anticipate. It's just that basic self-awareness. What do you experience in sleep? Nothing. No thing. But you are aware that you're aware of no thing at that time. Now we don't have a clear memory of what we experienced in sleep, but actually what we experienced in sleep was pure self-awareness. We don't recognize it now because we now experience our self-awareness mixed and confused with awareness of other things. I'm aware of this body, I take this body as I. Because I now have this confused self-awareness, this adjunct mixed self-awareness, I'm not able to recognize the pure self-awareness that I experienced in sleep. If I could remember the pure self-awareness that I experienced in sleep now, I would be experiencing the same thing now, because what I experienced in sleep is what is here and now. But now it's covered over by adjuncts. So we have to try and just be aware of that fundamental self-awareness. Other things will slowly recede into the background until our own pure self-awareness will shine in all its clarity, all its full splendor, full brightness. And that will dissolve the ego.
When we say shine and light, we think of an object like light.
Okay, that is why Bhagavan said, any teaching in words is imperfect. The only perfect teaching is silence. Because the very nature of ourself is infinite silence. So we can the only way of expressing silence is in silence. When Bhagavan told the story of Dakshinamurti, once when he was telling it, he said, for a year the Sanakadi rishis were questioning Dakshinamurti, and he was answering their questions one by one. And they were asking more and more subtle questions, and he was patiently answering. After 1 year he understood, but so long as he continues answering their questions, they're not going to grasp. So he merged back into the silence that he really is, and by his merging into the silence, they were automatically merged into the silence, because their minds had been so purified and so mature. But after questioning him, having such a deep conversation for such a year, they also merged. When Bhagavan told this, Murtala said to Bhagavan, but Bhagavan, no book is it said like this. It's always said Dakshinamurti taught only in silence. Bhagavan said, yes, but this is what happened. Who can say that? Must be someone who was there at the time. Because he's Dakshinamurti, he knew what happened. But he said he knew from his own experience, it can only be conveyed in silence. So in order to understand that silent teaching, we must be silent. And we can be silent only by attending to ourselves, and then by merging within, then we will understand what is that infinite silence, what is that pure self-awareness.
Bill was first. Yes.
Well, the key to it is the inquiry who am I, isn't it? I don't think, well, he knows about the inquiry who am I. As you're putting it, attending to I,
yes.
That's exactly the same as an inquiry who am I, isn't it?
Actually, inquiring is a rather, there's a problem with the word inquiring, because inquiring has two meanings in English. It can mean investigating, and it can mean asking questions. No, it's not questioning. No. It's investigating who am I. Yes. The word vichara means investigation. Inquiry in the sense of investigation. It's also used in colloquial language, the verb form of it, in the sense of inquiring or asking questions. But that is not the sense in which it's used in this context. In this context, it's used in the sense of investigation. We should investigate what am I. Yes, who am I, whence am I? Actually, it's the same. Because from whence am I, our real self doesn't come from anywhere. It's what comes from somewhere is our ego. Where does it come from? It comes from ourselves. It can't come from anywhere else. So, whence am I is the same as who am I. Who am I? I am what I am. Whence am I? From that same I am what I am.
You talked about merging with silence. How do I merge with silence?
That is just what he's asking, but in other words. No. He asked in other words, you're asking in other words. We're all asking the same question. We're all...
Sorry.
No. This is the correct question to ask. But this is what we are all trying... There's only one way of getting the answer to this. We can discuss it in words. But like Bhagavan said, do you need to be shown the way inside your own house? We have to discover it for ourselves. No one can accompany us inside. We have to turn within and investigate ourselves. Find out what we are. By investigating ourselves, our mind subsides. That is merging in silence. Yeah.
Does self-enquiry actually mean pseudo-self-enquiry?
You mean the ego inquiry?
It doesn't need any inquiry.
Well,
self is an experience.
They're not two selves. They're not two eyes. There's only one eye. Now that one eye seems to be this ego. So because we seem to be this ego, we investigate this ego. Because it seems to be a snake lying on the ground, Bhagavan said, look very carefully at that snake. When we look very carefully at the snake, we see it's not a snake, it's a rope. So whether he says look at the rope or look at the snake, it amounts to the same. Sometimes when Bhagavan expresses it, he says, see what you are. Atma-vichara means, what is Atma? Atma now seems to be this ego. What it actually is Brahman.
And just another question. Does mind have any useful function? At least one small one?
Yes, it has a useful function. Now it has risen and turned outwards. The only useful function it can have now is turning back within. Bhagavan said the same mind turned outwards becomes the ego and all expands as all this world. The same mind turned inwards is Brahman itself. Yes?
So my question is whether we talk about the dream ending or the mind dissolving into silence, however you may phrase it, my question is how is it different from what's happening now?
What is happening now, our mind is going outwards.
How is it different really? I mean,
well, do you not know the difference between waking and dream when your mind is going outwards and sleep when your mind has subsided within?
So are you saying that once the mind dissolves we become zombies, we don't experience anything?
You don't become zombies, you become Brahman.
Yes, so how is it different from what we are experiencing now?
No different, except all the adjuncts, all the manifoldness gets dissolved, disappears. What remains, the pictures on the screen disappear, the screen alone remains. While we're watching the film on the screen, what we are actually watching is only the screen.
So can we no longer hold conversations? Can we no longer eat? If everything disappears, how do we know what is the food and what is the plate?
You make Brahman sound a very pitiful character. He's sitting there all alone, no one to talk to.
No, I'm sorry, I don't understand. That's why I'm trying to ask.
None of us understand. None of us understand. That's why we're having this conversation. What we actually are is the infinite, indivisible self-awareness that is called Brahman. Now all this multiplicity seems to exist because we have risen as an ego. If this ego dissolves back into its source, which is Brahman, which is what we really are, what will remain is only Brahman. There'll be no one to have any conversation with, but we'll have no desire to have any conversation.
But Ramana used to have conversations even after his enlightenment.
Bhagavan never had any conversations. The body that we mistake to be Bhagavan had conversations. But Bhagavan said, I am not this body.
But he was taking care of so many people, helping people.
He, when you say he, you're referring to a person, a body, a mind. Bhagavan said, I am not this. I am that which is shining in you as I. Because we mistake ourselves to be a body, we mistake him to be a body. But he said, in one verse in Ulanapran Bandham, he says, the jnani is like a person sleeping in a cart. When a person is sleeping in a cart, they don't know whether the cart is moving, whether it's standing, or whether the bulls are unyoked. It's all the same to the person sleeping in the cart. So also to the jnani, whether the body is active, or seemingly in samadhi, or asleep, it makes no difference.
So how is the experience different? That's what I'm trying to get.
Bhagavan's experience is only self-awareness, nothing else.
And we can't explain what that is. So it's like looking for a red bag, but we don't know where it is.
You are that. That is the clue we're given. You are that. Investigate yourself. And if you want to know what Bhagavan is, find out what you are. You cannot know what Bhagavan is until you know what you are.
So how does the experience change? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like suppose
Okay. I'll take it another. Change occurs in whose view? All changes occur in the view of the ego. We don't want any change. What we are seeking is the eternal changeless state, the immutable state of unbroken, ever unchanging self-awareness. From the perspective of the ego, it all changes because everything disappears, including the ego itself. But from the perspective of Brahman, no change ever occurs. Because there never was any ego in the first place.
So perhaps if you could answer this question from the perspective of the ego, not Brahman.
Okay, from the perspective of the ego, the only way to answer it is see whether you exist. You, the ego, do you exist? Only you can investigate yourself and find out. Now you seem to be this ego. If you investigate yourself, it's like saying, is it really a snake lying here? Does the snake really exist? The only way of answering that is to look at it very carefully. When you look at it carefully, you see there's no snake, there's only a rope. What change has happened? Only a change in your perspective. The rope was always a rope. It hasn't changed. It didn't become a snake and then turn back into a rope again. Your own perspective has to change. So our perspective is wrong now because we have risen as this ego and projected all this. We had to change our perspective. We had to turn back within to see who am I who have risen as this ego.
I'm just trying to process this in my head, but I guess what I want to try and understand is that we will never understand it because logically it's not, we don't refer to us as bodies. I am you, you are me, we're all one.
Yeah.
And it's almost like what I'm trying to unravel or pick is that we're energy or we're source, we're an essence, and we come in different forms, but the forms that we come in, we're all one.
Yes, there is one awareness in which all these forms appear.
Right.
But in whose view do all these forms appear? These forms appear only in the view of ourself as an ego. Yes. Only when we rise as an ego. In sleep we don't experience any forms. But in waking and dream we rise as an ego and we experience ourselves as this form and so many other forms we see.
And rationally it's very difficult to explain what it is.
Yes.
But it's more about the essence and
yes.
That's
yes. But understanding it intellectually is useful for just getting some clarity of understanding what actually we are seeking to achieve.
Yeah.
We're not seeking to experience anything new.
Yeah.
We are seeking to experience what is ever present, what is ever shining, what we're ever aware of, which is ourself. But now that's mixed with, seems to be mixed with other things. If we investigate ourself alone, other things will dissolve. What will remain is what always existed.
Okay, so if I think of myself as essence, for me, it takes away the form.
Yeah, exactly. But what is that essence? That essence is just self-awareness.
I asked you this question once before, and I'm still not sure about it. You quoted a bit from Who Am I, and from the 40 verses, where Bhagavan says, the mind or the ego depends for its existence on something gross.
Yes.
And having attached itself to something gross, it grows fat.
Yeah.
And then if it transfers itself to something else, it also grows fat on that. So,
yeah.
What is this thing? Is it the body is the gross thing the body?
Yeah, the ego never rises without experiencing itself as a body. Whether in waking or in dream, we always experience ourselves as a body. So Bhagavan sometimes describes the ego as the awareness I am this body, dehatma buddhi, the body self-awareness. So that is what the ego is. So the ego never rises without grasping a body as itself. Grasping means, how does it grasp? Is there a body there for the ego to rise and grasp? No. In dream, there's no body waiting for the ego to come into the dream to grasp. The ego rises in dream, projects a body, it all happens simultaneously.
But the body itself is just a projection of thought, isn't it? So it's thought that it's attached.
Well, the body itself is a thought. It's one of the many thoughts projected by the ego. But the ego never exists without projecting and grasping this body as itself. Right. Well, this body or any other body. Which body it is doesn't matter, because it's always, whatever body it projects, the first body, it takes that body as I, and through the sense of that body it sees a world.
Right. And so the other objects, things that it attaches to, are other lives, are they? Other bodies?
Well, other things, I mean, ego is, the body is around the body. But when we see, we don't say we are seeing so many bodies here, we say we're seeing people. Because a body, with the body, there's a mind associated, a personality, all these things, some history. We all of us here have each one of us has our own history. We were born in such and such a family, we went to such and such a school, so many events have happened in our lives. That's our history. All this, we identify ourselves with all these things. It was I who went to that primary school so many years ago. It was I who travelled to India. It was I who worked in such and such an office. So these are all, by attaching ourselves to a body, we are attaching ourselves to a whole bundle. That bundle is called a person.
That is actually what the ego is.
No, the person is not the ego. What clings, what attaches itself to that person and takes that person to be I, that is the ego. The person is changing. The little Alistair who 60, 70 years ago was playing around in the sand with his little friends is quite different to the Alistair who's sitting here now. But the I who at that time experienced that little Alistair as myself is the same I who now experiences this older Alistair as myself.
We are trying to understand self-awareness.
Yes.
Trying to get inside us by silencing our mind. So it seems that mind is our major enemy and the big enemy and only enemy.
Yes.
To understand ourselves. So does that mean small organisms who don't have mind, they are already enlightened and self-aware?
No, they do have a mind, but in a very rudimentary form.
But amoeba, maybe first bacteria and other things, they don't have mind. But
How do you know they don't have mind? Do they have awareness?
As we know, we all follow science.
Well, but anyway, if inquiring about amoeba is not Atma-vichara, it is Atma-vichara, because we don't know. In a dream, we see so many people. We assume, because we take ourselves to be a person in the dream, we are aware, and and as this person we behave in a particular way. We assume that all the other people we see behaving in a similar way are also aware. But actually, when we wake up from dream, do we worry about the people we saw in the dream? Or are they missing me? We don't think like that, do we? Because we know they seem to be real as people, so long as we're dreaming. When we wake up, we realize it was, even the person we experienced as ourselves, it was all, that person and all the other people were just our own mental projection. So we shouldn't be concerned about others when we're investigating ourselves. We need to investigate ourselves. Merely silencing the mind is not the solution, because our mind is silenced when we fall asleep. But we don't thereby, our problems are not thereby solved, because they again pop up as soon as we start dreaming or waking. So what we need to do, not silence the mind, we need to investigate the mind. Who is it who is now risen and experiencing all this? When we turn our attention back towards ourselves, that I, the ego, which is the essence of the mind, begins to subside. Everything else subsides along with it. That is silencing the mind. But merely silencing the mind is not our aim. Our aim is to investigate what it is. When it's completely silenced, as in sleep, we can't investigate anything, because the mind's not there to be investigated. It's only in the waking state that we can investigate it. Waking and dream state, that is.
Trying to go actually by investigating.
Sorry?
What we're trying to achieve by investigating.
Now we seem to be a person, but we seem to be this person now. In dream, we seem to be some other person, some other body. So we cannot be that person we seem to be in the dream. Equally, we cannot be this person. So what we're trying to achieve is to know what we are, to experience ourselves as we actually are.
How does that help if I know what I am?
If you're content,
how will it change my life? And
are you content with your life at the moment? Is your life perfect in every way?
It depends on my mind. How do I think?
Okay, okay, right. So there are times when you're dissatisfied with your life, aren't there?
But there are times when I'm happy as well.
Okay, you're happy.
That doesn't mean that I'm self-aware.
No, but you're happy temporarily. Your mind's content for a while. But how long can you remain happy all throughout the waking and dream state?
So can we be happy once we realize who we are all the time? Does that mean that
it's not just a matter of being happiness. We are happiness itself.
But if I get self-awareness,
yes.
If my near dear one dies, so will I not have pain? Because
you will be dead already. If you attain Atma-vichara, you will be dead.
So I won't have any attachment. I won't have any.
No, because you will be the one infinite whole. So as the one infinite whole, you're not lacking anything. You can't lose anything. You can't gain anything.
So I will not have any feelings left within me.
You'll have only, what feelings do you want? You'll have, you are self-awareness. As Brahman, you prajnanam Brahman. Brahman is pure awareness. Feelings are from the mind.
Cut or wound.
Yes.
Something, then I won't feel the pain.
You won't feel the body itself. There will be, when
I won't feel the pain. But Ramana Maharshi Bhagwan, he had cancer, some ailment, and he was not physically.
Who had? The body had.
Body had, but it was there. We can't deny it.
Yes, but according to Bhagavan, the jnani is like, just saying, the sleeper in the cart. Whether the cart wheel is broken or not, the person sleeping in the cart is unaware of it.
See, if I know I'm not the body, I can understand, okay, I've got a wound, I should not get too attached about it.
Yeah, wait. You say, you understand you're not the body, but I have a wound. That again, you're identifying yourself with the body.
My body has.
My body has.
Yeah, okay, but the reason I said that, is why we are constantly referring to this body as I. Even if we say my body, we still experience this body as I. This is the problem, that we experience this body as I. So merely talking about it, we're not going to get rid of this. We have to investigate ourselves to know what we actually are. Now there's a snake, I see a snake lying on the ground. You can tell me it's a rope, but I'm still very afraid of it because to me it looks very much like a snake. I can accept, okay, maybe it's a rope, but I'm not going to go any closer because it may suddenly bite me.
But example of a snake is something that I don't feel it's me, but this is something I feel it's me. So what I'm asking is, after realization, will I not feel this is me? And if I have pain,
you will not feel it. You won't feel it's you. No.
So what will I feel? Nothing.
You'll feel.
It will be pure.
Bhagavan says when we know what we actually are, what remains is anadi, ananta, akanda, satchidananda. Anadi means beginningless. Ananta means endless or limitless, infinite. Akanda means unbroken, undivided. Sat is what is. Chit is awareness. Ananda is happiness.
Sri Ramana Maharshi was self-aware and he knew he was not the body. Then one used to serve food to poor people because those were also not people, those were not hungry, they didn't need food. So why he had so much of compassion towards the body? Because feeding poor people means it's taking care of the body, not the mind. So why was he serving that and then still continuing feeding poor people?
All these questions we ask about Bhagavan because we see Bhagavan as the body.
That's our scene, but he himself was seeing poor people as poor, hungry people as hungry, and they were suffering.
In whose Bhagavan said in
what we see that
yeah, but
he was doing it,
but if you ask Bhagavan these questions, what will he say? He'll say, in whose view is all this? It's in your view. He doesn't see himself as the body.
But how he sees the poor people who are hungry?
The body sees, but he is not that body.
So while he was feeding poor people, sorry, I'm just stuck. I'm trying to understand, if I want to be self-aware, if I feel that I won't have any feeling, I won't have pain, I won't feel this is my body.
Well,
if I won't feel about my body, I won't feel about her that you are the body. But when I see you hungry, you're not eaten for 10 days, why will I feel compassion? Why will I serve food? I will say, oh, it's not my body, I don't feel the pain. She's not hungry, she's not the body, she's not she.
The thing is, Bhagavan is infinite love. because in his experience, he alone exists. He loves himself. So whatever seems to exist in our view, he loves, because he doesn't see it as something separate from himself. He sees everything as himself.
But he didn't see poor people because we see poor people. He saw poor people because he saw poor people.
No, he saw poor. He didn't see poor people. He saw himself.
Yeah.
What we see as poor people, he saw as himself. Because he has infinite love for himself, his infinite love is also for those poor people.
He was seeing the poor people, he was seeing the body, he was not seeing the inner.
He wasn't seeing the body, he doesn't see his own body, let alone their body.
Yeah, so how can you have compassion for the other old body? That is, I think,
Okay, shall I tell one or two things that Bhagavan said? In answer to your question about how Bhagavan is so kind to everyone, one thing Bhagavan said is, a jnani is like a mirror. Whatever comes in front of a mirror, we see our own reflection. So we all have love for ourselves. So when we come in front of Bhagavan, we see he has great love for us. You ask any devotee, anyone who is with Bhagavan, or even those who first, I think almost everyone, most of us in this room were born after Bhagavan left the body, but we still feel Bhagavan has special love for us.
But he feels love for us, or he can feel love
but
for us.
why?
He sees us as us.
We see him as a separate person. We see him, that separate person, as very loving. But actually what he is infinite love. You're talking about the screen, as the screen is something jada. It's an analogy. We can't stretch the analogy too far. The infinite self-awareness that we actually are is also infinite love. So Bhagavan is infinite love. So anyone who comes to Bhagavan sees Bhagavan sees Bhagavan as a person who loves them.
I completely agree with this, and I'm not denying that he didn't have love, and he didn't have compassion, or he didn't see as a mirror.
But
he saw love because he saw others as himself.
He didn't see others, he saw only himself. That is seeing, what we call seeing others as himself. We are the ones who see us as other, see all these as other. In Bhagavan's view, there were no others, there was only himself. That's why he had infinite love. There was, in Bhagavan's view, there's no division. There's no you and me, there's only self-awareness. But that's one thing. The other thing is, when people question Bhagavan in this way about the final state, he said, no use in anticipating whether it's this or that, whether forms appear. In the final verse of Uludunapadu, he said, whether it's with form, without form, or without form. I will say the destruction of the ego form, who argues whether it's with form, without form, or without form, that is mukti. So let us first investigate ourselves. Until we investigate ourselves, whatever we say about that final state is mere theory. It's not our actual experience. Let us experience it.
So I think we should talk less here and more go inward and more.
Yes, yes. But if we do talk, let's talk, but encourages us to go inwards. If the story, okay, I'll tell you another way of answering this. When that column of fire appeared between Brahma and Vishnu, Brahma took the form of a swan and tried to see the top. Vishnu took the form of a boar and burrowed down. What happened to the two of them? Brahma flew higher and higher. He was totally exhausted. He understood he couldn't see the top, but he didn't want to admit it. So when he saw that flower falling down, the Ketaki flower, he asked it to bear witness on his behalf that he had gone to the top and brought the flower. So he went back, he told a lie. I have seen the top. Vishnu, when he was burrowing down, as he was getting more and more exhausted, he understood what fools we were to think that we could see. This is Parabrahman. This is Shiva himself, but it appeared before us to subdue our egos. So I will never be able to see the bottom of this. So he came back and he said, he fell at the feet of Lord of the Column of Fire, Annamalai, and said, I couldn't see the bottom, and so I surrendered to you. Brahma said, no, but I saw the top. Brahma there, Bhagavan says, Buddhi Ahankaram Pulam Bedavango. Brahma is the Buddhi. The Buddhi flies higher and higher and higher and says, yes, I know it, I understand all this. Vishnu is the ego which dives down within. When the more the ego, deeper the ego dives, the more it subsides. And until it's obliterated. And then it achieves the real humility. Only in that ultimate humility does the truth shine. So this story symbolizes, by allowing our intellect to go outwards, we're not going to achieve anything. We have to turn within. Then only we can get the answers we're looking for.
Ramana Maharshi was self-aware and he knew he was not the body. But after enlightenment, still why was he eating food?
This type of questions, this is Brahma flying up.
No,
instead, rather than asking questions about Bhagavan.
If we are going and trying to realize we are not the body, and that's the ultimate awareness, then how can we think about the body or just eat?
First,
if we are hungry, we can chew.
These questions, what is the purpose of Bhagavan's teachings? Bhagavan didn't give teachings to have to write one more philosophy. There's innumerable philosophies in this world. He didn't come to add to all the philosophy. He came to teach us the very, very, very simple principles. All this seems to exist because we have risen as the ego. If we want to solve all these problems, if we want to answer all our questions, we have to find out who we are, which no one else can tell us. We have to go within and investigate ourselves. Once we investigate ourselves, and when our ego disappears, then we will know the answer, whether the world still appears or doesn't still appear. Bhagavan says in the end of verse 6 of Arunachashtakam, Nindrida Sendrida Nirevida Vindre. Let it appear or let it not appear. Let it go on or let it stop. It's not apart from you. So that's all that matters.